This is iFanboy Pick of the Week 894, brought to you by iFanboy listeners just like you who are, yes, washing their hands and possibly also wearing their masks in indoor crowded environments. My name is Connor Kilpatrick, and this is my co-host, Josh Flanagan.
Hi there.
And joining us this week in the third chair is Dr. Ryan Haupt.
I believe you mean Officer Ryan. I'm pretty offended, you guys. Yeah, I know the hot dog vendor was a combination of the two of you, but the very next page was a guy named Brian. You don't think that was intentional?
I don't know.
Seriously?
Brian?
I don't think Tom King's listened to the show in forever.
Ryan?
Was his name Brian?
No, his name was Ryan. He was Officer Ryan. It's the guy who confronted the Kingpin with all the swearing and the violence and or not the Kingpin, the Penguin. But come on, really? You guys are happy to just be one hot dog vendor and not accept the backup of an Officer Ryan?
Okay, let me ask you this question right now. Let me ask you seriously. Do you want me to check if it's actually you? Do you want to know that it is or isn't?
I believe it is. And if it's not, I'm going to be sad. I've met Tom.
I know.
All right, let's move on because we haven't
even you mentioned the hot dog vendor because I know hot dogs are important, but officers of the law are important too.
Well,
welcome to iFanboy Pick of the Week, episode 894. Every week, one of us picks the book they like the best from their stack of comics. We call it the Pick of the Week. We're going to talk about those books. We're going to talk about the books we read and the Patron Pick. We're going to answer some listener mail. Hopefully, we have time, unlike last week. And here's your spoiler warning. Exercise some caution because we're going to talk about the books this week. Officer Ryan had the pick of the week.
Thank you. And this week, the pick was Mighty Morphin Power Marvel Age number 1000.
I was really worried you were going to make that book the pick of the week. I'll be honest.
It was pretty good. It was pretty good.
I was a little surprised. Yeah.
I enjoyed it quite a bit.
So, Marvel Age 1000. Can we talk about that for a second before we get into the book itself?
Please.
What the fuck is that? Because
I don't know.
Didn't they do it already?
They did Marvel
twice.
They did like Marvel Universe 1000 or something like that, and they did another 1000. It's all bullshit. There was a Marvel Age series in the 80s and 90s. I know because I read it, and it was all. I cannot believe I bought this book. It was a behind the scenes series where there would be creator interviews and features about what they were working on, and like preview art. Like it was basically like a comic website in comic form in the 80s and 90s. And not only did I buy it, I bought back issues of it. That's how deep in I was in 1990. But I don't know where this fucking number comes from. It doesn't matter. Good cover.
But it was a great issue. Yeah.
Really great issue.
I liked the first issue a lot. The first issue
of this way back in 1961 of Marvel Age.
The first story in this issue. It's an anthology. So to very briefly run through the gauntlet, it's a Jim Hammond Human Torch issue, a Spider-Man issue or story. An X-Men story, or X-People story, a Captain Marvel story, a Daredevil story, a Silver Surfer story, and then a Jason Aaron Thor story, and then that's it. And for me, it was and then there's like a meta Stan Jack.
Right, that's the story that wraps it up. This Steve Ditko story.
For me, this pick was sealed with the Rainbow Rowell X-Men story.
It was a great one, but I do want to talk a minute about the first story because Josh and I were talking about this offline during the day while reading. This is it's appropriate. The first story is a Human Torch, the original Human Torch, Jim Hammond story, because that's one of the original Marvel characters from the 30s.
I thought that would be more related to the overall theme of the issue than it turned out to be.
Well, if you read the back, that Tom Brevoort, the editor of the book, talks about he wanted it to be an overview of Marvel, touching on the major characters, which is I think what they did successfully. I think it was a very successful issue.
Yes.
However, this particular story that kicks off is written by Mark Waid and drawn by Alessandro Cappuccio. Isn't he the artist on Moon Knight, Ryan?
Good question.
I think he is.
I believe that he married Rick Dalton in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
He now has a dog. So it takes place in 1939, okay? That's when the original Human Torch was. And we see him and his creator, and the whole thing about this story is that the Human Torch learns morality by listening to this radio show about this detective. And being a robot and not knowing, he goes to a police station and asks to meet the detective, and they all laugh at him because it would be like one of us going to a police station in 1939 and asking to meet Dick Tracy. So they laugh at him. Fine, all good. The problem, Josh, do you want to illuminate the problem, or should I illuminate the problem?
So I'm reading this book, and I'm like, okay, cool. It's 1930s. You got Professor Phineas Horton. That's how it works. That's kind of cool. Get in there. They're talking about how Hammond is obsessed with the radio show character, and he sort of finds out that he's not real.
He freaks out.
And yeah, he freaks out. So he goes to the cops. And so in the first shot of inside the police station, there's some cops, there's a regular sort of cop uniforms.
One cop's tie is half the size it should be, but okay.
Yeah, maybe if I'm paying attention, I don't notice that those look more like modern cop uniforms than anything. Then second panel down, you have a black man with a bald head and a goatee in a t-shirt and vest as if he's on Vic Mackey's strike team.
Right.
And I thought, that's kind of odd. And I moved along. It'll be fine. And then I thought, wait, does this other guy have a hoodie? And then the other cop has the badge on the chain around his neck, again, like Vic Mackey strike team.
Yep.
And then I was like, wait a minute, I thought this took place in 1939. And I was like, maybe that was the beginning. And I was like, wait, no, he's there talking about the radio show. So it has to be. And it takes place in 1939. It's just the artist said, fuck it. Or didn't notice.
It's like no one told him it took place in 1939. He drew modern cops. Like nothing. I had the same thing. I was like, what is happening here? Why did all these cops look like it's 2023?
I went back and forth a lot trying to see what was going on. And Connor, you bring up costume issues and inconsistencies a lot. And I would say it's fair to say it bothers you a little bit more than it does me.
That's fine.
But in this instance, I was angry. Not angry. I mean, like, I don't care. It doesn't matter.
You were comic angry.
I was, but because I felt when I said to Connor, I was like, this was disrespectful to Mark Waid. Like, it came in and they saw it and they said, good enough. That's bullshit.
Yeah,
you couldn't shoot a period piece movie and then have two New York City cops come in on the set of Julius Caesar.
Right.
You can't put that out.
Yeah, I don't know the logistics of putting together a book like this. And the thing is, this is Tom Brevoort editing. This is not like some, minor, new editor. I know editors underpaid and overworked, but this is a major issue. This is a story taking place in 1939. All the cops are from today. It's very bizarre. I don't know how that happened, but that was the only negative thing I had about the entire issue. And you can get back to why this was the pick of the week.
I mean, I noticed that as well, but I wasn't on the text thread, so I didn't get to comment. But it is okay. But I enjoy. I don't know. I enjoy a Jim Hammond issue, and then I thought the Spider-Man issue following by Ryan Stegman was
these are not issues.
Really
these
fun.
are stories. These are stories.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The Spider-Man was fun. It was about him being late and then his family, and they got to touch on all the characters important to his life. I thought it was a cute.
But
story.
for me, it was the Rainbow Rowell, Marguerite Sauvage
that was
story.
Terrific. That was terrific.
That I was just like, I want a whole series of this.
Well, everyone loves the original X-Men, and I say that, and someone will write it and say they don't. But there's something special with that original group, and Rainbow Rowell can absolutely 100% write an X-Men first class book. Terrific. This is a story about Jean being lonely. She's the only girl on the team, and the guys are always horsing around with each other, and she's sort of off to the side reading a book and
around and horning around.
Yeah, well, this is nothing compared to those 60s comics. And then they're all basically sexually harassing her constantly. And this is the growing attraction between her and Scott. It was a terrific short story. I thought this was great.
Yeah, it's
especially
one of those
the art
things
where it goes weird and Kirby-esque in the action sequence on page 29.
Yeah. It is
Fantastic.
One of those things now where, like, I have been a fan of Rainbow Rowell for a while, and
she's
I'm talking about it, but like when I see, every time her name is on a new comic thing, it's even more impressive than it had been. Like it's like, oh, these are pretty good, and then you kind of get excited about it, and they're just like, wow, she's just getting better at this.
Yeah,
and it's it's bringing
really
totally
good.
like a teen romance thing to it, but it's true to the characters and the form. What she's doing with the form is really nice. too.
Yeah.
I think, and then the art is just
The
spectacular.
The Margaret Savage
Well, yeah,
art was terrific. It has like a ethereal quality to it, which I really like.
And the expressiveness,
clothes. The clothes are
Mhm.
great.
the ways the clothes drape on everyone's bodies, the expressions of the characters, the way they react to each other.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many. There's at least 3 or 4 silent panels of Jean Grey just having a look on her face that that absolutely nails the moment.
And you
It's
have to
great.
trust your artist that's going to be able to pull that off, and you have to have an artist that can pull that off, because honestly, not every artist can. Some artists, it's the same face no matter what's going on. But
Yes.
Captain Marvel story I thought was solid. The Mike Allred one
It had that one great page
with
where
all the musicians.
with and I like Mike Allred's had a thing about sort of American rock or like classic rock
he's
and
a
roll.
musician. He's a
Yeah, totally. So and I was like, yep, I know who all these people are. We're good.
The Daredevil one was my least favorite of the stories. That was the Armando Iannucci story.
Yeah. So I gotta say is that I saw his name on Armando Iannucci. I knew him first, unlike a lot of Americans. He was EP of the I'm Alan Partridge, which is one of my favorite shows. And then he did Veep, much bigger, and then a lot of people know him from In the Loop and Stalin is Dead, all that stuff. And I thought, this will be kind of rough. And I actually thought
he's done comics work before. This is not his first comics work.
Yeah, no, I know, but I actually thought. I thought it was a really well done little short story with a theme, and it was a bit of a stretch. You had to, the thing. It was basically his senses went haywire whenever anybody lied, and at first I was like, "That's very silly," and then I thought, "Well, no, but there's precedent for it in terms of like the thing changes, like he can sense their heartbeat or whatever it is, and as a sort of device that maybe isn't necessarily 100% realistic, but maybe like his morality is repelled by it."
It wasn't badly done. Like from a craft standpoint, I thought it was fine. It was just all of these stories were sort of evergreen hero tales, and this was more like we're going to make a change to the character in this.
Well, it was more like this is what will happen to Matt Murdock as he ages in a way that's like
he was older. People kept calling him old man. I was like, all right, what? So that was the only thing. I just thought the conceit didn't work for me, but the craft was good. He was fine.
The Adam Kubert, man,
yeah, really good,
great, just beautiful.
I loved the Silver Surfer art. It was written and drawn by Steve McNiven, and it was a very weird sort of Mobius Steve McNiven because it was Silver Surfer. And I thought it was gorgeous.
He tore it right down. Absolutely gorgeous. Didn't care about a word in it. Yeah,
but I didn't really need to, right? It was just it was just the Silver Surfer, debating with Mephisto about the nature of man, clearly in sort of Ukraine-esque war zone, and it was just beautiful.
Steve McNiven is an artist who doesn't look like anybody else's art, really, and really was known for it was almost like a Brian Hitch of his, at his peak. And then this is like where you see somebody like really strip it down and turn it into like the stuff that we liked about him before is still there, but it's really raw. All these little just sort of beautiful little cross hatches.
Well, he's doing a Mobius tribute, so that's sort of why that's
whatever.
There. But
he could draw like this from now on. I'd be fine.
But it sings 100%. It's incredible.
And then I like the Jason Aaron Thor story. It was about Lady Thor and the girl who hates superheroes. It was a quick turn for the character, but I didn't mind it. And I thought, because it's a short story, you don't really have the real estate. And
Pepe Larraz is the star there.
She thinks every hero is living, this godly life, and she's got a rough life. Her mom died, and she's working 3 jobs, and she finds out that Lady Thor is actually dying of cancer, and it changes her whole view on heroes. And I thought it was a really strong, solid, with a really nice structure to it. Jason's always been good at structure.
Yeah.
And the way it ends with the sort of dialogue turning back in on itself from the beginning of the story, I thought it was a really well constructed story.
Alejandro Sanchez on colors. The colors in the story are fantastic.
Yeah.
Really great.
What did you guys think of the final story, the Stan, Jack, and Steve meta tale of these kids who are the only ones who can witness the story of the Marvel heroes through their knothole in their fence, and they've been writing and drawing them what they see?
I have
Michael Straczynski story. It was a very Straczynski story.
I have very mixed feelings on it. I think that the Care Andrews art is great, and it instantly puts you in a place where they are, and it's fun like that. I think it's a little bit. I know it's Marvel, so and it's Disney, and you have to. But I was like, this only works as fantasy.
Yeah,
Like it was almost not rooted enough in the actual story that it kind of bothered me. Does that make
Ryan, what'd
sense?
you like? Well, so yeah, it's not reality. Ryan, what did you think?
And the art was nice. I don't know. I struggle with it. Like it's cutesy in a way that Straczynski stories often aren't. I feel like, but
So that's interesting because I felt it was very Straczynski.
Oh, I
it
did.
just
too.
didn't. I don't know. It
He's
just didn't
usually
feel.
Very Americana.
He's very Americana hokey. Yes.
The Americana was there. The Americana was definitely there.
Which I sometimes like.
Just in small doses, absolutely.
This was a pretty small dose.
I thought I think this is a comic about doing a tribute to Marvel. I think making a story about those three guys who at the beginning, Joe Simon could have been in there too, but
yeah,
at the very beginning, these three guys. I think it's nice to do a tribute story without doing like a story about them. This is more making them characters in a story.
No, I don't think you need to delve into all the nuances of who did what and all the shit that everybody's argued. But maybe I think that I just wanted to see a little more of their personalities. Like maybe, I don't know, just amp that up a little bit to diversify them a little bit.
Hey, Jack was willing to fight the bully.
Yeah, and he was a little short guy. Yeah, I don't know.
I thought it worked for me. It wasn't incredibly successful, but I thought it worked for me.
Yeah.
It required, I don't know. It requires it's a meta story that also requires a meta level of knowledge about these people and their history in the. No,
almost everybody reading
you're
these
not
books.
wrong, but if you're reading the end of the 80-page Marvel Comics 1000, you don't probably need you don't need an explainer on that. And it's 5 pages, and like I don't know.
I just mean, what does it mean to somebody who maybe isn't as deep?
I mean, if it's just a tribute to, I don't know. That's like
I feel
saying
like everyone knows Stan, right? At this point, everyone in the world, and then if you're reading this comic, you probably know who Jack is. You maybe you don't know who Steve Ditko is, but I think you get the idea.
I think that but as I read the first. I think that they should have made Stan more Stan.
Yeah, that actually the failing might have been the art from Kara Andrews, which I thought looked great, but I didn't know what I was looking at until I really a couple pages in. I was like, oh, okay, I see what they're doing.
I'm saying, put a little more of their personalities into it. Stan has more dialogue than Jack, or Jack has more dialogue than Stan. No, I want to see so the reveal that it was them was fine as I looked backwards, but it wasn't really like, oh, I should have seen it. It wasn't that obvious.
Right.
It wasn't like, I just feel like they need to amp up the personalities a little bit. And the point he's making is good. These guys are the ones who had the imagination to see this beautiful stuff.
No one else can see it but them.
And that's great. And Stan Lee should get credit for that. I'm not, all that's, all three of them, and they don't need to fight. But I need to see it's them a little more. Because I feel like we know all of their personalities really well. We do, but whoever, you could have put more into it though. It's almost like somebody wrote this who had no idea what these guys were actually like at all, and that's weird to me.
Straczynski. I mean, he's changing. It's a different kind of one. Yeah.
Hey man, I enjoyed it.
Good pick, Ryan. It was my pick as well. I just love classic, evergreen tales of these characters. Because often the ones that we're reading from week to week aren't that great. So
it wasn't a hard pick once I got through the 80 pages. It was good.
It didn't really. I wasn't ever feeling the length of it. For me
neither.
I thought it moved very quickly, and some of these long books you feel it, but this one I didn't feel it.
Yeah, it was light on clunkers.
But then again, I was not under the gun like Ryan was, so maybe that helped. I want to talk about Batman / Catwoman, the Gotham War, #1, Battle Lines. These fucking titles. Written by Teenie Howard and Chip Zdarsky, drawn by Mike Hawthorne, and we're all big Chip Zdarsky fans. Teenie Howard less so. This was one of the worst Batman comics I've read in forever.
Really?
Yeah. And Also, I'd just like to point out, so this issue is setting up the Gotham War mini event happening in the Batman books, or at least a couple of Batman books over the next 2 months. It's happening in Batman, Catwoman, and then there's a bunch of specials. We had the War of Jokes and Riddles. We had the Joker War, and now we have the Gotham War. They need to do something else with Batman. All of these stories are the same story. We're going to tear Batman and Bruce Wayne down. We're going to go to war. Gotham's going to be a war zone against one of his great enemies. It's going to be
now it's his ex-girlfriend,
and now it will change. It's like, just tell some fucking Batman stories and don't tear him down to the studs every 6 months. And that's all they seem to know how to do with Batman. This is literally the third something war story arc in the last 5 years or whatever it is.
Oh, by the way, that reminds me, you're not Officer Ryan. Sorry. Just
see you guys later. I gotta go. I got some things.
I
to take
told
care
you
of.
I didn't have to check. You asked me to check.
So
yeah, that's like one of the bigger bummers. Now, I mean, Connor wants to act like this wasn't a derailment, but
he warned you. It could happen.
I did. I literally. You can go, but you can check the tape. It's not tape.
All right.
So
the
premise of this is that, and look, there's actually kind of like the premise. The premise is that Catwoman has decided this is all dumb. She hires every hired goon in Gotham, everyone that the villains all hire to be their hired goons. She trains them and turns them into high-end cat burglars, so that almost all the crime in Gotham is now high-end cat burglary, and street crime is basically dropped to nothing. And so, first of all, I think it's a good idea of her taking all the hired goons and turning them into her little cat burglar army. I liked that. The problem is, that assumes every criminal in Gotham is a hired goon, that no one else is committing any crime in Gotham. There aren't any kids stealing cars or pulling stick-ups on the street. That everyone is part of this gang of hired goons.
And the criminals are quite reasonable. Should you give them a good deal?
Right. That was I don't believe, that's stupid. Number two, I totally forgot that Batman got his hand cut off in this time travel adventure, so now he's got a metal hand like Luke Skywalker. Number three,
I did notice that.
Number three, Catwoman calls a meeting of the Bat family and says, "This is the new normal. I have unionized all the hired goons. They're not going to be pulling dangerous heists anymore. It's all going to be about robbing the rich. I have now controlled crime." And I was like, well, that's still crime. Controlling crime doesn't mean no more crime. It means you're controlling it. That's just organized crime. That's what the five families did. And she expects Batman and the through the book, the reader expects that they'll find this reasonable. And Batman's like, no, this is bullshit. And now the family has split between those on the family who think this is a reasonable alternative.
I didn't finish it. It's like the Civil War.
The war is, the battle lines of the title is between the members of the family like Jason Todd, who think this is perfectly reasonable and we should support it, versus Batman is like, this is fucking crime still. And we're here to stop crime. And I just like, this is...
So who are the teams? I saw Duke. This is around when I stopped. Duke was like, hey, it makes sense to me. So you got Duke and Jason Todd over on the Catwoman side. Who else?
Scroll back over there. Does Stephanie think it's okay? I don't remember. They didn't draw it out yet, but basically that's the premise, is that and that's in the solicitations, the Bat family will be split in half over,
Mm-hmm.
So it's, Damian and Batman are clearly on the all crime is bad side. And they haven't really said how Tim and Dick and Barbara are going, but it's just stupid.
I was confused in the beginning when Tim was there, and he was like, "Oh, Batman, you're here!" and he gives him a hug, and then Batman calls him son. I was like, "Wait, who am I looking at?"
Well, yeah, but I mean, he
I
was.
know from the costume, I was like, "I think it's Tim," but I was like, "I don't feel like this is Tim," but he's not acting like Damien. It doesn't matter. I was like, basically, the point is too many Robins. That's what I'm saying.
And then Zenora, that stupid Batman, who was the ultimate pure version of Batman, is back in his head. It's just like. It's the same story. Zenora was there for the Joker war. They're just telling the same Batman story over and over again, and it's tiring, and it's not fun. Mm-hmm. And I get it. This is the unintended consequence of the market going to trades or focusing on trades is that every story has to be big and bold and an event. They can't just tell Batman punching Mr. Freeze when he tries to rob a bank. No matter how good that story might be, they have to make it big every time because they got to sell that trade with the title on the cover that says the Gotham War, as opposed to just Batman punches Mr. Freeze, Volume 12. Like, I get it, but it just loses its appeal after 5 years straight of Batman will never be the same after this war in Gotham. And it's just like, oh my God, I'm falling asleep just reading this. So this is why I'm so angsty about the state of Batman.
I'm sorry.
Miss Marvel, the New Mutant #1, continuing the Fall of X stuff.
Like just some other guy named Ryan?
I think it's a very common name, especially among police officers.
Yeah, it's an Irish name.
All right.
So
to be fair, I was pointed out to me that those names weren't spelled like ours, so that we have nothing we can sue over.
We can't.
So
there's no actionable intelligence.
Yeah. It wasn't confirmed entirely that it was us.
Remember how before the show I said we definitely have to get to the emails this week because we screwed the people over last week? So Miss Marvel and the Mutant #1, latest from the Fall of X. I haven't read a Miss Marvel book since G. Willow Wilson stopped writing it. I love that book. I love the Miss Marvel character. I liked this. This was solid. There was some art problems. There was some art problems.
I mean, I like the art style in general. I know, like,
the main story was terrific. It was the dream sequence that had art problems, but it's all right.
The thing I didn't, first of all, starting off with, like, it was like a couple of pages of dream sequence. It kept going back to it. That's one of the things I hate, but one of my bugaboos. But the only thing that I don't buy about her and all of this is that we keep going, I just found out I'm a mutant. And it's like, what does that fucking mean? I don't understand. What is it? Because she still got her powers, but they said she might not have because some are mutant, and it's like doesn't.
She's both.
I know, but they're. It's like they're shoehorning in this thing that doesn't add to the character. It doesn't make the character better or more interesting. It is using the character to fill a purpose and stick her somewhere else.
Well, I mean, it's not. You're not entirely wrong. I do think it adds to her level of alienation, which is interesting.
I don't think she needed it. She's a young girl who is a minority in America, and she's got, coming from like different cultures all over the place. She's in New Jersey.
She should be hated for being from New Jersey. Being from New Jersey should be the biggest problem she has.
I'm just saying, like there's plenty of alienation stuff there that you don't need to plug the mutant thing into it to sort of make that point. And if like this was like, we don't know what to do with her, so we'll give her this and we can plug her in over in these stories. Okay, fine. But it's almost like they killed her, and then we're like, well, what do we do? Well, we could make her a mutant. Oh, okay. It's like the opposite of when they made all the mutants Inhumans.
I mean, that's not what they did. They killed her because they're killing everybody right now. Moon Knight's about to get killed. That's just
I know, but like it just I don't know. I don't think she needed it. Like, I kind of enjoyed this. I kind of, it was fine.
I love her as part of the X-Men. I don't know, she didn't really fit as part of the Avengers. There's already a Captain Marvel in the Avengers. Doesn't need to be another Captain Marvel in the Avengers. So I like her as a mutant. I like her as an X-Men. I think she's fun because she brings a totally different energy than the X-Men characters who are all very serious and brooding all the time. I loved the sequence where she told Bruno that she had died and now she's a mutant. I thought the art was terrific. I thought that
was a wonderful page. You're absolutely right.
The storytelling in the faces was amazing. I just loved once it got past the dream sequence. I don't hate dream sequences, but it went for 10 pages and it was long.
Yeah. And you could tell it was a dream sequence. So I was like, this isn't happening. So I'm reading it for no reason.
Once she got to school, so she's doing a summer school program at college that's being funded by Orcus, the anti-mutant organization. Once we got to that point, I really enjoyed it. This is co-written, it should be noted, by the actress who plays her.
Yeah.
Ryan, did you end up reading this? I know you were under the gun.
No, I didn't get through it. Yeah, it feels like I don't know. It feels like the identity of these characters is getting shuffled around based on external factors that aren't relevant to like necessarily the story or the larger place that they play.
Business considerations.
Yeah. So I don't want to be jaded, but maybe I'm a little
Jaded.
skeptical of why, like, why shift this person to being a mutant unless Disney purchases Fox, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that horse. We all hate that horse. It left the barn 10 years ago or more.
And everybody's following that horse.
It is what it is. I don't like that all of this. I've said it 100 times on the show. I don't like that decisions are made by non-comics people, but I think I like this one. That's fine if you don't like it. It's totally okay. I like the situation where she's. I mean, look, she's Peter Parker, right? She's super smart nerd who has secrets she's got to keep from her family and is always messing up in some way. She's female Peter Parker, which is fine. So many characters are basically Peter Parker. I think she's charming. I think this book was fun. I've missed reading Miss Marvel. And this is very Peter Parker. She's going to this, college for super smart nerds, and she's got a big secret because they all hate mutants. And so, what does that mean? I don't know. I don't know. I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it quite a bit. And I'm just totally in on this. And this is only a 4-issue miniseries.
It's more for me about like what does her transition mean for the status quo, and I liked some of the Hellfire Club stuff that I read where she's interacting with all the mutants and figuring out what this means for her.
She's way too young to be in the Hellfire Club.
Yeah,
a couple more years. I get it. I get it, Ryan. I'm the first one to say it's bullshit when things change to fit the movies, but I think why not with her, because she's such a blank slate in many ways. So, and the Inhumans thing doesn't really land. I mean, when's the last time you saw a really interesting Inhuman story?
Yeah, it's just weird that like she was introduced as an Inhuman when the Terrigen Mists were kind of like blanketing the Earth, and then she had the show, which I think, Connor, you told me was like the least watched show of all the Marvel shows.
Maybe, I don't know.
It wasn't like her show wasn't a huge hit, but they also had to like sort of retcon her show into it was a bracelet found by her ancestors.
Well, they changed her whole thing for the show. That's fine, but
the fact that like now we're like transitioning again to something else.
But what you're missing is that the whole reason she was an Inhuman in the first place was because of the movies, because they didn't have the X-Men in the movie world, so they were trying to build up the Inhumans. So like, it all ties back. Everything that's happened in comics since like 2010 has been about the movies and the TV shows. We can't get around it. And so
you got to find what you can within
even introducing her as an Inhuman is because they were trying to build up the Inhumans because they didn't have the X-Men anymore. And they had sidelined the X-Men. So all of it from the very beginning, from her very first appearance, is because of considerations in the business. You can't get around it. It is what it is.
Well, I'm not mad about it. I just don't know that it works.
That's fine. You're totally fine with thinking she shouldn't be a mutant. Nothing wrong with it.
What I'm saying is I'm not sure. I'm willing to let the story play out. I'm willing to keep reading.
You're mutant curious.
Well, that sounds like a particular fetish that I'm not going to commit to right now. But
I guarantee you there's a Craigslist section for that in the Marvel universe.
Oh,
and
100%.
the first, and at least 50% of the first top posts are Remy.
That was good. Local Man Gold is a special. I don't know why it was just in the next issue of Local Man. But
that's the main point I wanted to say. Thank you.
Done. Ryan, have you been reading this the whole time?
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, so Ryan and I talked about the first issue, I think, when Josh wasn't on the show. Local Man is an Image series from Tim Seeley and Tony Fleeks, and it's a tribute to the early 90s Image. It features a bunch of, outlandish Image characters from that era. And the main story is about this one guy, Crossjack, who is now older, probably in his 40s. He's retired sort of back home because he had a falling out with his team. They pulled the legal maneuver. He can't use the costume or the name anymore. He's really not supposed to be even fighting crime, but he's doing it in the ski mask. And he's back home in Wisconsin, living a sad, disappointing life while he fights crime in that small town. It's been interesting and fun, really interesting and fun. I've really enjoyed this book quite a bit.
I really like it.
Why I wanted to talk about this issue was because it was fucking bonkers. And so he gets called by the cops to come to the station to find his younger self in prison, his younger self with the 90s floppy hair and the costume, and he's a real douchebag. And he's like, oh, right, I remember this. This was a time travel multiverse bullshit. And so he goes outside, and there's Stryker, who was the four-armed Cable clone. There's a woman from Dynamo 5. There's Street Angel. There's Fire Breather from Phil Hester. There's Boof, who was a Todd McFarlane character. And he was like, "Oh, I forgot we went with this crazy time travel adventure." And Stryker's like, "My sensors have picked up a anomaly in the time stream." And we cut to she's at the local Walmart, and we cut to fucking Joan from Love Everlasting, who's working at Walmart. And they're like, she constantly reboots every time she falls in love, and so she becomes a major plot point character. It was just this bonkers image mashup. Where they had to stop this guy from killing Joan, which was so crazy. And
I loved it.
I thought it was super fun. I liked this issue a lot.
I had a ton of fun with this.
And then Joan gets in on the action. Like, she's not just there for as like a one-note joke. She's involved in the story a little bit.
Joan's into action.
Young Crosstrack tries to hit on her. She's just like, "What the fuck?" Because he's a douche. And they end up saving the day and stopping the time anomaly. And I just thought this was crazy. And then there's a big old double-page spread with like Battle Pope and a bunch of characters. Chew from Chew and
Battle Pope.
It's just Tim Seeley's tribute to the early 90s Image world, which was dumb. It was dumb, but it's fun. But it keeps going. Like, I don't understand why this wasn't just issue 9 or whatever we're up to.
Agreed.
And then there's always a story in the back that takes place in that era that Tim Seeley draws of the original team. These are all characters from the 90s. These are all real characters, by the way.
Yes, real characters.
So it was fun. I thought this was incredibly fun.
Me too. I enjoy the hell out of this. And these issues, they read so well. Like, I would, if you told me there was an Image series that was an homage to the early to mid 90s bombastic, ridiculous Image comics of yore, I would worry that it would be a slog.
It's our childhood.
But it's so fun.
It's Tim Seeley.
It clips along. It's so good.
I'm not gonna give credit to Tony Fleecs because they basically both write it, and Tony Fleecs does the art in the main story. Tim Seeley does the art on the second story. But it's bursting with Tim Seeley's personality and his aesthetic, and it's just a lot of fun. It's so much fun. I'm going to read his He-Man book that comes out next week because I wasn't going to read that, but I saw he wrote it, so I was like, "Oh, what the hell? I'll give that a try."
Wow.
Yeah. So this is the month of September. This episode comes out the first week of September, and in this September, we're going to be doing a Booksplode review of the Death of Superman 30th Anniversary Edition. So it was fortuitous that this week we had Action Comics presents Doomsday Special #1, which was written by...
It was fortuitous, but it was also confusing.
Written by Dan Waters, Eddie Barrows, and Eber Ferreira on art. I'm not a fan of them ever using Doomsday. I thought he should never have come back after that. And I don't want to get into it because we have a lot to talk about for that in that Booksplode. But I thought they should never have brought him back after that Death Superman story. He was so effective in that, and every time they bring him back, it makes him lesser. Now that being said,
it almost feels like the idea, the sort of retcon that they've done is like every time you kill him, he comes back stronger.
Yep.
Feels like a meta comment on like the effectiveness of the character.
But also, if that's the case, he should never be beaten ever, right? Like, it took Superman dying the first time to stop him, and now it's like if he's come back stronger 7 or 8 times. The point is this: I don't know what the story was leading up to this particular thing. He's sent to hell, and
Doomsday.
Actually kind of like that. Like, he was like, he's in hell, and everyone kind of worships him, and he's sort of become the god of hell. And sure, why not? Fine. And then they bring Bloodwind back, and I don't want to talk about Bloodwind at all because we're going to talk about him on the show. But he's now the Superman of hell. Why not? Interesting enough.
There was a lot of wacky shit in here.
Yeah,
and I liked that. I thought what you're saying about Doomsday is absolutely true. There was a bunch of wacky shit in here. It was just like Doomsday and hell, and then Martian Manhunter's got to be involved, and blood.
And he's a threat to the devil or Neron or whoever you want to be.
And reality, blah blah blah, all that stuff. Now that shouldn't be like they should not. But as a story on its own in this, I just want to real quick the conversation at the beginning between Kara and Clark.
Yep.
They're at the table, and she's like, "So what was it like?" And I like that because she's a Kryptonian, so she wants to know
Right.
And like he's very forthcoming about it, and kind of it's a very human response in the way that he talks to her, and they're on the same level. I thought that was really well written.
Yeah, he said, I got, by the end of it, I was so tired, like the way I imagine humans get tired, that we never do. And I was like, ooh. There was one point where Martian Manhunter and Supergirl get sucked into hell, and she sees souls being tortured. And she's like, we got to save them. And I was like, they're in hell for a reason.
Well, that depends on how you, that's subjective.
Like, who knows? That could be a pedophile on that rack. You know?
Yeah, but maybe we were wrong, and masturbation really is a terrible sin, and they didn't know.
If that's the case, everyone's going. But I was just like, you're in hell. It's not like you know, you don't know who that is. That could be Hitler. So that was funny. No, I thought this was. I enjoyed this. It was silly. Bloodwind was fun. I always liked Bloodwind, and so they found a way to bring him back here as sort of the protector of hell. And whatever, I enjoyed it.
It was fun.
You know what? I'm gonna let you talk in a minute, Josh. But I wanted to say I started reading The Hunger in the Dusk #2, and I was about 4 or 5 pages in, and I went, I never read the first one. Because you talked about it on the show and raved about it. So I, when it came out, I was like, oh, I should read that, but I didn't think that I hadn't. I just assumed in my head I had, and so I was like, wait a minute, I haven't ever read the first issue. However, what I found was it didn't matter to enjoy this issue.
I believe that's about. I think that's about right.
I had all the information I needed. I mean, I'm assuming there's information I don't know, I don't have, but to enjoy this specific issue, I didn't need anything else. I got the gist of the characters and their relationships. So I thought it was super fun.
There's a big threat coming. There's monsters everywhere. Orcs and humans have to work together for the first time ever. There you go.
They're going to start banging soon.
Yeah. That's kind of what's going on there.
But I thought it was super fun. The Chris Wildgoose art was terrific. Ryan, what did you think of this issue?
Yeah, it was great. I caught up on this and I really liked it. The main human character is named Cal. I like that. No, the art was great. The story, it's weird how there are like meta tropes in fantasy. I know we've been using the word meta a lot in this episode, but like the young useless bard, the badass woman, like that's all very Dungeons and Dragons honor among thieves. Like the old archer who's can stand off to the sides and be the sniper. Like that was interesting. But I found myself very engaged in the world. It felt like it was playing on tropes that were recognizable without... It was new enough to feel fresh, but not so tied into the D&D Tolkien-esque mythology of it that it felt stale.
Well, I think that's what Josh said in his review.
Yeah, I don't want to... There's no point in really you can listen to that episode when it was Pick of the Week, but that was kind of the point, is that I think the difference between G. Willow Wilson and all of these other newer creators who don't have the chops necessarily, haven't done the reps, is that they try to build this whole world. And what she's doing here is go, no.
Tell the story.
We're going to tell a story about these people. I'm going to give you these tropes so that you have something to be hooked onto, and then we're going to move. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I don't need to do everything differently because my story is going to be good and my characters are going to be interesting. And these clues are going to give you enough of an idea who they are that we can just move along.
And that's, Image has been putting out a lot of fantasy books lately, and some of them are just too complicated, and they're too dense. And this was like,
just right.
You know what orcs are, you know what a bard is. We're just going to tell the story and not worry about, what is the minutia of the world. We're just going to tell. And I thought it was really fun. You're right. This is the mark of a veteran storyteller. It was really. Yep. I'll probably go back and read the first issue, but it was.
I'm glad.
I'm going to definitely keep reading. I thought this was really, really enjoyable.
The Blade #2, the Blade. They should call him that.
The Blade.
I didn't put this on the list. I don't know why I started talking.
Ryan put it on the list.
I did.
Why don't you talk about it?
Yeah. No,
did
thank
you read it, Josh?
Yeah.
Brian Hill wrote this, and Elena Casagrande drew it, and I only caught up on this week, so I read issues 1 and 2 this week, and I like a lot of Brian Hill's comics, but I feel like this version of Blade is not a version of Blade I've seen before. Like it's not aping the Wesley Snipes character, it's not aping any comics version I've seen before. Like it's a smooth, cool, comfortable Blade. The action in the book is super cinematic. in a way where I'm like, did they hire Brian Hill to write the treatment for the screenplay for whatever movie they're going to do? But I find that I'm just really digging how this book is happening.
I think it's I don't know that it's.
You liked the first issue.
I did, but I don't think it was because like it wasn't like, holy shit, I can't believe it's like, this is just a comic book story that has adventure and it's kind of sexy and it's kind of dangerous and there's big weird shit going on. And again, it's there's good skill. There's skill on this page. Brian Hill is a great episodic writer of these genre characters. Casagrande is a great artist. You've got Jordi Belair coloring it. It's not like amazing, but it's great, Marvel genre fiction. That's just, it moves. There's little twists and turns. There's monsters or whatever. Like, it's a little bit meat and potatoes in the good way, I think, is the way that I felt about it. And I don't know who Blade is.
Yeah, that's true.
There is no Blade. There's the 70s one. There's the movie one. There's 58 different versions of him since then. Blades can be anything you need him to be, really. And here's what I know about this book. Blade fucks.
Yeah, true. And he picks up guns that fire ghosts at people, I think. I don't know.
He's keeping it, too.
He is keeping it. I flew home from Chicago recently, as Connor and Josh know, and I watched the second Extraction movie, Extraction, with Chris Hemsworth, and it's very good. It's a fun action movie, and I felt like this, was tying into like some of the same action tropes but in comic form, not in movie form, where like Blade jumps into a helicopter while it's flying, and he gets like shot up a bunch, but it's cool, and he survives it because he can, and I don't know, it just. I dug it.
You don't need to apologize for liking
action adventure.
Yeah,
I don't apologize for liking it. I'm trying to articulate why.
It can just be fun, Nothing wrong with that. Hey, those are the books we're going to talk about. It was a small week. It was a short week.
I read a lot of extra books that I wouldn't have otherwise. I was like, what else you got? I was just reading everything.
I think I had 10 books. Yeah. So those are the books we're going to talk about. But at patreon.com/iFanboy, every patron of the show gets a vote out of the book to the rundown. And this week, much like the time that The Hunger and the Dusk was the pick of the week, Marvel Age number 1000 was also the patron pick. And so we already talked about it. And let's do a ratings on it. And, well, we know we're not going to keep reading it because there's no more issues. But ratings out of 5. Ratings. I'm going to give it a 4.5. I really liked it. Yeah, I really liked it. That was terrific. Great art. Great stories.
Ryan?
Anyone else?
4.75.
3.75.
Whoa!
It was fine.
That's low.
I enjoyed it, but
No, it was low.
listen,
That's low.
there's a
Low.
major error at the beginning. I didn't know how I felt about the last one.
Oh, okay. I can see you knocking a point off for that error.
Yeah.
That's fair. It was pretty bad.
I thought the Ryan Stegman art was great. Story, didn't care about.
Okay. All right. Patreon.com/iFanboy. If you want to vote to add a book to the rundown, you got to be a patron. And you got to vote. Thanks to all those who do vote. We appreciate it. And real quick, those patrons are the ones who directly support the show. They unlock content and shows for everybody. They become part of a great community on Discord and Facebook. And they get to have the monthly patron hangout, which we did last weekend, 2 weekends ago, which was fun. And we really appreciate all of them. And they get tier exclusive merchandise. Depending on what tier they sign up for, there's merchandise exclusive to that tier. And after 3 months, they automatically receive it in the mail. Don't have to do anything else. And we hope they enjoy it because we don't even get it ourselves. So thanks to all those who support us at patreon.com/iFanboy. Also, iFanboy.threadless.com is where our 13 t-shirt designs are. You can also get those designs and other things besides t-shirts, but most people get t-shirts. And that's cool. iFanboy.com/support is our PayPal link and our eccentric billionaire tip jar. iFanboy.com/Amazon is where you can buy our Books, Blood Books and our general shopping link. And bookshop.org is our partner to help out local bookstores. And you can find those links on the website where appropriate. So thanks to everybody who supports us. And now If you're a patron at the $5 or higher level, you get a superpower live on the show bestowed upon you by one of the hosts. And this week, it's the doctor's turn.
Officer's turn.
Officer. Well, we found out that's not the case.
Oh, man.
I mean, you could claim it.
No, I won't. It's gonna bum me out for a while. I'm gonna
I
reach out to
very
Tom
specifically said, "Are you sure you want me to check?" Which, by
No,
the
that's
way, was a
fine.
power move. Me saying I could check and getting an immediate response. Just saying.
Yep. No, you win. Flanagan. Kenneth Derrick also wins because, do you guys know? I mean, it's Labor Day weekend this weekend, right?
Yep.
It's the end of summer.
Yes,
You know what that means?
sadly. What?
It's decorative gourd season, motherfuckers.
Mm,
Kenneth,
Out of all the things
didn't see that coming.
that were going to be said, I did not have that on my bingo card. Go on.
Kenneth Derrick can fire decorative gourds out of his body at high velocity. Any decorative gourds he wants to be in any position, he can just shoot them out of himself.
Where do they come from on his body?
You're just getting points here for the words decorative and gourds, and like it's a concept I never think of.
Some of
but
those
the
gourds
second-
are really bumpy.
The second you said it, I could feel and hear the sort of hollow thump. They
It might be a
existed in
little
my
painful
home.
for Kenneth,
Mhm.
but decorative gourds can fire out of his body in
Again.
any direction at any speed,
From where do they come?
wherever he needs them to come from. To get the decorative gourds decorated in the space that he's in post haste.
Interesting.
It's
From-
decorative gourd season, motherfuckers.
From whence they
I
come.
don't know about you where you guys live, but it's going to be about 90 degrees until October where I am. So
Decorative
not really decorative gourd
gourd
season here.
Season.
Yeah, you still do decorative gourds though.
I do in November.
Imagine trick-or-treaters coming up to your door. And you just go, decorative gourds! Just fire.
Jeez. Yeah, it seems harsh
Like
for the
happily,
kids.
or like a threat, or like he's
can't
just fucking
speak.
excited about it.
I can't speak to Kenneth in his neighborhood.
Yeah.
I just know what he is capable of doing, and it's decorative gourds.
All right. Patreon.com/iFanboy. Thanks, Kenneth, for being a patron and use those decorative gourd powers wisely. And now, because we didn't do it last week, we're going to try to do some emails, even though we're long, because some people couldn't keep the calendar or the clock in their heads.
Yeah, Josh.
Let's do it. Mike H. from Buffalo, New York. Mike says, I was delivering my mail route, listening to an episode from 2021, and this question popped into my head. Do you think the Green Lantern's energy constructs make sound? And does Alan Scott sound like a roaring fire? Because he's powered by the flame of the Starheart. Doctor?
No.
Alan Scott's wouldn't apply to what the other, because he's not Owen based.
They're different.
They would have nothing
they're
to
different
do.
powers, yeah.
But also, Kilowog is on record as the only Green Lantern who makes sounds.
Right. Because light doesn't make sound. So light constructs wouldn't make sound.
There was a paper that came out. Hang on. There was a paper that came out like a week or two ago that was about scientists being able to transfer sound information across a vacuum, which should not be possible. I have not read the paper yet, so I do not have
so
any.
every pedantic nerd who ever watched a space movie is going to get plowed over by this one, huh?
Yeah, plowed over by Alan Scott.
But in the comics, Ryan's correct. In the comics, they've said that Kilowog's constructs are the only ones that make sound.
I didn't know that. But because they are solid, they could, in fact, parts of those constructs could bang up against each other, making sound waves from the air around them. They can create
if
sound.
Light
they
against light doesn't make sound.
But if they're also if they're in space, there's still no.
Well, space is different.
Space is different.
No. You're flying around in the atmosphere. If you're making a solid object, whether it's made of like solid light already, is that a thing? Is that just a sci-fi concept, right?
It's a sci-fi concept.
Okay, so then we've said there's solid light, which means they're solid, which means that things are contacting with each other, and there will be noise within an atmosphere. So if you make like Kyle Rayner, I remember made a monster truck once. That monster truck is going to make the same sounds that a monster truck would make because all the things inside are moving as if they would normally. The monster truck doesn't inherently make that noise. It's the mechanical movement of those things. Or if you make like a light construct lion or whatever, does it not have the vocal cords and moves air across them?
Only if you make the vocal cords. Like just
That's fair.
If the ring doesn't just make an anatomically correct lion, you.
Well, also Connor, let's circle back.
Yeah.
What about Kilowog makes his constructs make sound? I always felt like it was the sort of
Comic
there was
magic.
something about Kilowog in his like intensity as a lantern, like something about what he was bringing to what the ring creates was what generated the sound. It wasn't inherent to the constructs. It was inherent to Kilowog's intensity or ability as a ring wielder.
The rings talk to the wielders, do they not?
Yes, they do.
And that is psychic, or is it audible?
I don't even like that they do that, but
I remember
because isn't that like a Kyle Rayner?
But now they all do.
I remember him like cruising across the universe in like a Cadillac construct, and I swear he had the radio on.
So let's put aside real world science. Let's put aside the Kilowog thing. In your guys' head, do you want the Green Lantern constructs to make sound?
Yes.
Like in your head when you're reading the books, do they make sound?
Well, I want them to make natural sound from the thing. I don't want them to be. I mean, like I guess you could have that like lightsaber energy crackling thing.
Right.
I'd probably be okay with that because you've got light hitting atmosphere, whatever it is, and there's heat that comes off it or whatever. And if any of them were going to make a fire sound, I think you could make an argument that Green Lantern's or Alan Scott's does.
Right. It's also like
because
magic.
If you were making the movie, you would put a sound in there.
Well, yeah, you'd have to.
But that's why it's cool that it's comics, because like for me, it's the opposite, where I think it's really interesting to think about this, raging battle between green and yellow or whatever color lanterns, and it's totally silent, and then
like
Kilowog shows up,
raves.
and it's right, and Kilowog shows up, and it's Quathum, and it's this blast of energy, and to me, that's more interesting than everybody making a pew pew pew.
Well, whatever, pew pew. But I'm saying if you make a giant spongy catcher's mitt, it has to make a comedic noise when something hits it.
Thump.
To me, it doesn't. To me, I like the idea that it's like all silent except
you're in the animation brain trust. And by the way, let's point out this is for entertainment purposes. You're watching one of the movies, and Hal Jordan comes up with a big old green.
Oh, Josh,
bat.
they never use Hal Jordan in those movies.
You know what I mean? John Stewart, whoever it is.
Kidding. They
big old green bat
and
gives it a swing when it connects with something. You don't want to hear that crack. He makes a chainsaw, and you want it to be silent.
It's kind of interesting that it's silent, because it's. I think from a cinematic point of view, it's kind of interesting.
Well, what we need to know now is if
now we know.
There's ever been sound effects put on the pages of Green Lantern in its various.
I'm sure they have.
There has to have been.
Just like filmmakers refuse to do space battles with no sound, and just like filmmakers refuse to do dinosaurs covered in feathers, they also this is just the way it is. For storytelling purposes, they make sound.
I would like a silent dinosaur battle
in space covered in feathers.
Covered in feathers.
Just two frozen dinosaurs floating around.
Giant frozen chickens.
And Ryan goes, see, that's the way it was supposed to be. And that's a message from Officer Dr. Ryan.
Josh, read the next email.
Dan B. of the San Francisco Bees. Which do you think is ultimately more useless? The first one already is. An encyclopedic knowledge of comic books or an encyclopedic knowledge of sports. I thank you for your attention to this important matter.
They're both equally useless, ultimately.
Well, that's sort of true.
I mean, at the end of the day, they're both useless. But no one can save anybody's life with encyclopedic knowledge of
but
1974 Pittsburgh Pirates.
Within both of those things are stories of culture.
Oh no, I'm not saying it's bad to have them. I'm just saying they're equally useless. If you're making
how much uselessness?
One is not more useless than the other. They're equally useless, which is to say they're fine. I mean,
yeah, but like I do think that with it, like it's one thing to be flippant about it, but within those things, if that encyclopedic knowledge of comic books or sports, there's stories of our world. Like there's truths, there's history that's all in there. I don't like watching most sports. I certainly don't like watching baseball, but Ken Burns baseball is my favorite Ken Burns.
Right, but what I'm saying is one is not better than the other. They're equal.
Hang on.
Yeah,
I have a question for
fair.
Dan B.
Well, go ahead.
Did Dan B send this question to any sports podcasts, and did they even bother to consider that their gut reaction, obviously sports is better reaction is better?
Wait. So let's look at the use of the word useless.
Mm-hmm.
So
thank you.
In things that have a use, or for example, the ability to be monetized, I'm pretty sure sports knowledge is more useful than comic book knowledge.
However, the three of us in this context, uselessness, utility function, we have all made money based on our knowledge of comics.
Have you seen the books? I mean,
I just got
indirectly. I got a job.
I'm just saying.
Wait, this check. Are you saying I shouldn't cash this check from Ron? Because it's got a lot of zeros on it.
If it cashes, then good. Congratulations.
Well, we have also all done work just outside of iFanboy. We have all done paid work in the comic book field. Or
no one has ever paid me to throw a ball or talk about my knowledge of people who do throw balls.
That's because you've chosen this thing. I mean, the thing is, for someone else, it's an opposite. It's equally. It's ephemera and a minutia. It's the same thing.
He asked us.
Right. I'm saying in the grand scheme of things, it's the same thing.
What other podcast, is pardon the interruption, is Tony Kornhauser going to do a segment on esoteric comic book versus sports knowledge?
Why would he, though? I'm saying
Dan B wrote in.
I'm saying there's no value judgment. It's the same thing. Having an encyclopedic knowledge of anything is ultimately
just whatever kind of nerd you are.
I mean,
useless.
Sports. I would say that the edge that sports has is at least sports events happened in reality.
Well, right. I read a comic in reality. That's all. The question is.
I know what you're saying, but I don't know that matters in terms of cultural context.
I'm thinking out loud.
I'll tell you right now. I don't think either of them are useless. I don't I think that there's absolute real value in both of those things. Now, do you want to sit next to somebody with an encyclopedic knowledge of sports, for a long time? Well, there's two ways to go. You can have people who have an encyclopedic knowledge of things usually like to let you know, is my point.
Yeah, I mean, I think people like what they like, and if they have a deep interest in it, they tend to accrue an encyclopedic knowledge of it. So it's like no different than some encyclopedic knowledge of stamps or trains.
I know, but you'd be like, I'm just trying to get some stamps there at the post office. You could stop telling me about it. Well, actually, you should. It's just it's the nerd stereotype. Is what
I just think there's no difference. I mean, I don't, whether they're useless or not. There's no value judgment. One is not better than the other. That's my point.
I agree with that. And neither, arguing about uselessness, it's a race to the bottom, right?
Right. We had an email. We had an email a long time ago.
Are either of them useful?
Neither of them stand up against an engineering degree, is I guess what we're saying.
We had an email a long time ago similar to this, asking about.
I would like my 10,000 hours back.
About people liking sports and comics, and my reaction at the time is the same. If I walk into someone's apartment or a house and it's covered wall to wall, floor to ceiling with comic stuff, I'm no more comfortable than I walk into someone's house and it's covered wall to wall, floor to ceiling with sports stuff. I don't find either of one of those things good. Jim
Gaffigan has a routine about people who look down on McDonald's. Mm-hmm. And it's the idea that you're like, oh, I can't believe you eat that. But you read Us magazine. That's McDonald's. It's trash stuff that you get into, whatever it is that everybody else thinks is terrible or something like that. I don't know that it applies, but it made me think of it. It's just whatever your stupid thing is that you like. It's your stupid thing you like, whatever.
Yeah, everyone has it.
Now, I would say that they're not really that stupid, but
I think just think obsession is not
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. I think any
Yes.
kind of obsession is not great. I went to someone's house once, and I think I talked about this at the time. A friend of a friend, and he owned a comic store, and it was wall to wall, floor to ceiling comic stuff. And I was just like, I gotta get out of here. And it was not because I don't like comics. Clearly, it's just that this is a level of obsession I don't even have. And I ran a comic website and web podcast. Anything. But if I walk into a place and it's wall to wall figurines, of anything,
Yeah.
I just it's just whatever. And my point is this: if you're into something, it doesn't matter. But Ryan, read the next email.
Pete D wants to know, let's assume that by some strange twist of fate, one or both, or I'll just edit this on the fly, all of you, Connor, Josh, and Ryan, wind up running a hot dog cart in Metropolis. Would your hot dogs be boiled or grilled? Also, would they be beef, pork, or a blend, or veggie? I can dream, ? I've been thinking about this for 14 hours since reading The Penguin #1.
So if we had a cart in Metropolis, would we have boiled or grilled hot dogs? And
Wait, as a seller or as a consumer?
as a seller, if we ran a
Seller,
cart, much
seller.
like
Yeah,
Connor
What do I care?
Flanagan
What's-
of The Penguin, who had a hot dog cart. So the question is, would they be boiled or grilled? And this is interesting to me because
Neither.
all right, hold on. I had never seen a grilled hot dog cart until I moved to Los Angeles. In my 33 years of living in New York, I only saw boiled hot dog. Now, maybe they existed and I just never saw them, but to me, the quintessential hot dog cart features a dirty water dog, and that's what I'm going to have.
Yeah, the dirty water dogs, are they boiled or are
They're
they
boiled.
steamed?
They're in.
They're in the water, but so what I'm saying is that where I grew up, the hot dog carts, they were always steamed hot dogs. They had a nice snap. The buns were also steamed, so they were kind of soft and whatever.
They're sitting in water. So I mean, I don't know if the water's actively boiling, but it's got to be.
No. My steamed
what
hot
Josh
dogs
is
were not
saying,
sitting in, but how were they actually cooked?
In the hot water.
Okay, then they were maybe not boiled. They're sort of blanched.
Poached.
I don't know.
They're poached hot dogs.
You're making it sound worse every time.
But that's what they are. I mean, they're sitting in hot water, and that's how they're cooking. I remember seeing the first grilled cart here in LA, and it was like it's not the same.
Wait, so when you were in your 30s?
Yeah.
Wow.
It wasn't like the cart in New York where they're on wheels and they move. These are like someone sets it up on the street, and it's a little portable grill, and they're grilling hot dogs, and usually with bacon wrapped around them outside of a bar. But I had never seen that before because in New York, as far as I knew, it was all boiled hot dogs.
But you'd had grilled hot dogs,
I'm talking about a cart, not.
No, I know. I'm just making sure, it wasn't like the concept was.
Yeah, in my life, in my 30s, I'd never had a grilled hot dog. I'm saying you've been with me to Grace Papaya where the hot dogs are grilled. I'm saying
it out loud.
I'm just saying a cart, a hot dog cart. Right. I'd never seen a grilled cart before until I moved to LA.
Connor's kind of salty tonight, isn't he?
I'm just. I literally have grilled hot dogs together on multiple occasions.
What do you think is more useless? Knowledge of steamed hot dogs? So wait. So the question is,
if you wound up running a hot dog cart in Metropolis, would your hot dogs be boiled or grilled?
I have two answers.
All right,
go ahead.
The hot dogs would be served with chili and coleslaw on top of them.
That is not an answer.
The dogs themselves would be grilled with chili and coleslaw on top. Fine. And then it would also serve spaghetti with chili and cheese on top.
What kind of cart is this?
It's a stupid Cincinnati cart is what it is. And he's just finding some other way to bring up his garbage chili.
It's a fusion West Virginia Cincinnati cart because the West Virginia slaw dog with coleslaw on top of it is delicious, and then just some strong yellow mustard. The dogs would be a blend of beef and pork, but they'd be short. They'd be like little 4-inchers on buns to match. And
this gets worse the longer you talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you guys can't handle a real conversation about short hot dogs.
The regional differences on the hot dog question are worse than any political differences that we have in this country.
Oh my God.
Bringing them up is a problem. Say the word ketchup to a Chicagoan.
Oh,
you will get your ass beat in.
I spend a lot of time with Chicagoans here in LA, and it's just like I got to hide my ketchup.
Yeah, in New England, you do ketchup on them, and they put celery salt on them, and the ones that you buy are steamed. That's how they do it. And the problem with that is
where's the coleslaw?
It's no coleslaw. We have chips. We have bags of chips. They have Humpty Dumpty on them.
Josh, are you grilling or boiling your hot dog cart?
I would steam. I
His
would
whole
never
cart?
boil.
That's not a
Boil
choice.
is a problem. I know. So given the
So
chance,
is it a
given the
New York
choice,
style dirty water cart or is it a grilled cart? That's the question.
it's grilled. I'd be grilled. No question.
How do you do that
It's
on a
not even
movable
close.
cart, though? There's got
They
to be
do
a
it all
way.
the time. You see the flat chops. They sell the sausages out there.
Hmm.
There's a whole
And would you
flat
sell
top
beef-
movement going on
Beef,
now.
pork, or blend, or veggie?
I don't care.
You sell them all.
I mean,
if you want to sell to everybody, you got to have them all ready.
What are like Hebrew and those are right. So those are
not
beef.
pork,
The
those are
Hebrew
beef.
and then the Nathan's hot
Hebrew
dogs. Those
National
are my favorites.
and Nathan's.
Yeah.
Beef.
Yeah, all beef. Those are all beef then. Yes. I'd give the option on the veggie though. If there was a good enough one, you can that's good.
Yeah.
You can offer that.
These days, you need a veggie dog. So I'm going to have a boiled cart. Josh is going to have a grilled cart. Ryan's cart sounded like some sort of Willy Wonka machine that had a lot of things going on. And that's what we would do. Not Patreon. Contact at iFanboy.com is how you can write in. Like Pete, Dan, and Mike, thanks for writing in. And hopefully we made up for missing it last week. And of course, you can always write in for our Media Explode show by putting Media Explode in the subject line of the email so we know where it's from. Josh, what else we got going on?
Well, the things that we got going on here are scrolling downward, for example. And then we will say that 2 weeks ago, the Animation Brain Trust, that's you guys.
It's us and Paul.
And Paul have come in with some talk on Justice League War World. I understand that it was somewhat it was spirited. Is that what that being correct?
It was divisive.
That's probably the word I was
looking
for.
It was divisive though.
And then in sort of I don't think it was divisive when I spoke with Rick Remender on our Talksplode episode. I think it was a coming together of just two dudes talking about how they feel and making comics and talking about
hot dogs.
That's all we did. I mean, not like directly, but the
metaphor was there.
Yeah, the implication.
The implication was hot dog related.
Yeah, sure. And then this past week, or as I hear it in my mind, today, Media Explode was new podcast came out, and we did the 80s comedy draft, where Ron, our former co-host Ron and Connor and I talked about we each had a pick to draft 5 80s comedy movies. If you need to know more detail on it, we explain it in detail at the beginning, and then once we do it, it's incredibly obvious what is happening.
It was an hour-long draft.
Yep.
And you got a lot of stories about growing up in the 80s. I'm sure all the kids will love those.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure they're really happy about hearing from more mid-40s white men and Officer Dr. Ryan.
Ryan, how is Science Sort of?
It's what podcasts used to be.
That's right.
They used to just be white dudes talking about a topic.
Ryan, Science Sort of.
Limping along as I struggle through real life stuff, but continues and will rise again at sciencesword.com.
But your episodes are all still available, right? So people could go back and listen.
350 plus backlog of episodes, some really good ones. Some that Josh might even enjoy, including an interview with author Andy Weir, who wrote The Martian.
Do you talk at all about
on?
Yeah, we almost lost that episode. I had to reach out to I had to reach out to the cloud recording based platform, not the one we're using now, but a previous one, to say, hey, can I recover the episode with the author of the Ridley Scott's starring story that we just recorded, and we got it back. We made it work.
Nice work.
Good job.
Thanks.
So you can find all those shows over at sciencesortof.com. You can find all of our shows at ifanboy.com or on our podcast feed. All the shows are there, over 1,300 episodes, all of our Pick of the Week shows, our special editions, our Talksplodes, Booksplodes, Media Explodes, they're all there. You can find them for your listening pleasure. You can also follow us at iFanboy Comics on Instagram to find out what the Pick of the Week is before the show comes out, or sometimes the Best Week in Panels. And individually, we are CS Kilpatrick on Instagram, Jay Flanagan on Instagram, Haupt on X.
Fuck off.
No.
And Ryan Haupt on Instagram.
No. Also kind of no. Not really on any of it.
Haupt on X. And Ryan Haupt on Instagram.
That should be the name of your new podcast.
Haupt on X.
Haupt on X. Is that you take drugs and then go to places?
Or that's the podcast where I transition to being a female representing person.
Possibly.
Mm-hmm.
Josh, take us home.
Well, if you want to go over to youtube.com/iFanboy, you could subscribe to that. And you will find all of our old video shows there. That's all there. The archive, the history. Maybe you have an encyclopedic knowledge of what we've done, and that is truly useless. And this show will be posted there every week. It's another way to listen to it. Go there, poke around, find a video. We're nominally proud of much of the work we've done there. No, we are, but also not in some of aspects. It's all a growing process, what I'm saying. You could please consider writing us a review, leaving a star rating, thumbs up on the YouTube stuff. If your pod I was going to say catcher, is that still a thing?
Sure,
it is.
Podcast app of choice has that option. Please do it. We would really appreciate that. Review, leave a rating for another podcast that you really like. Tell them that you like them or what. Help people find them. Do those things.
I mean, they could smash that subscribe button.
They could, but you could just do a nice normal left click.
They could hit the bell so they know when a new episode's coming out.
I use a trackpad, so I do a tap. I do a single tap.
I'm wrapping it up. Thanks for listening. I'm Connor.
I go last, Officer Ryan.
I'm Officer Ryan reporting for duty, but
my name is Connor Flanagan, hot dog magnate of Gotham.